All right, so for this video, I wanted to talk about how when people start to throw tomatoes at you, metaphorically speaking, then that means that you're onto something. That means you're telling the truth in some way. Because in the mind of a normie, in the mind of a non-player character, an NPC, the the soul, and I've thought about this for a while. Like, what is the purpose of a normie? What is the purpose of an NPC? What is the NPC's prime directive? Is that their purpose is to guard the Overton window. Their purpose is to corral you inside of the Overton window. And what they do, what the normies do, what the NPCs do, their job is to get the real souls, the real people on this planet to stay in conventional modes of thinking. That is their job. That is the job of an NPC. That is the whole. It's almost like that robot from like that robot from Rick and Morty. It's like, what is my purpose? You pass butter. What is the purpose of an NPC? Is to guard the Overton window. The purpose of a non-player character is to use cattle prods in order to get people to stay in the Overton window. You're not allowed to think anything outside of it. You're not allowed to notice patterns or to say anything outside of this. And if you do notice patterns, if you do state uncomfortable truths, then this is where they start the name calling, they start the cancel culture stuff, they start the censorship, they start to attack your character. If they can't attack your message, they attack your character. They attack you instead of the message. They start to attack your words, like oh, you made a spelling error, right? Like it's like you're arguing with someone. Like people say, oh, you made a spelling error, or you're not using this definition correctly, or that they get all pedantic. They get obsessed with like all the tiny details, and so that's where like it's a sign that you're onto something. Is if they can't attack your message, they attack you. They try to assassinate your character, right? And there's three main things that the normie or the NPC uses to as sort of cattle prods to keep people in the Overton window. And what they do is they use consensus to make you feel powerless. They use mockery to make you feel stupid, and they use shame to make you feel bad for speaking the truth. Right, let me say that again. They use consensus to make you feel powerless. They use mockery to make you feel stupid, and they use shame to make you feel like a bad person, right? And so if we go to the consensus part of it, this is something that a lot of non-player characters they do is they use like, oh, nobody agrees with that. You're alone in this, right? Oh, nobody agrees with that. Oh, you're in the minority. Right? They try to make you feel small. They try to make you feel powerless if you state something that is true, or if you state an opinion of yours. One of the things that they will try to do, one of the tactics of spiritual warfare that they try to do, is they try to diminish your they try to diminish you with consensus. Oh, like but everyone else agrees with this. Like, what, you're an outlier, you're alone, right? And they do this to make you feel powerless. They do this to make you feel like, oh, maybe I'm wrong because everyone else agrees that X is the case, even though I believe Y, right? So that's the first method that they use. The second thing is they use mockery. What they do, and this is where you get into the name calling, right? This is where you get into them making. I've had people in my past, especially in school, who sometimes they would make up rumors about me that weren't true in order to make me look like a bad person, in order to assassinate my character because they just didn't like me for some reason, right? And so like this is the that the ad hominems come out, right? Like they call you like you're like, oh, you're an incel, you're a chud, you're a racist, you're a misogynist, you're an anti-Semite, you're a schizo, you're a crazy, you're a weirdo, you're a kooky conspiracy theorist, you're one of those weird people. Or like they call you all these different names for stating the truth, for stating patterns, for noticing things that you're like, for saying the quiet part out loud. They will essentially mock you, right? And this spirit of mockery is something that I notice a lot in the mind of a normie. This is something that I notice a lot, and is something that's in the mind of a non-player character. It's a part of their code. Is that mockery is one of the main things that they do, because yet again, they're not concerned with truth. They're not concerned with logic. They're not concerned with they're not concerned with your argument, with your reasoning, with like yet again, like their job is to protect the Overton window. Their job is to protect the consensus, right? And so in the mind of a normie, in the mind of an NPC, it's not about what's right and wrong. It's not about what's true or not true. It's about what's conventional. Does this viewpoint that this person is saying, does it line up with the hyper vaccinated, peer reviewed version of reality that I was taught in school? Does it match up with the view of reality that authority feeds me, right? Because that's what like the non-player character's mentality is that their worldview is fed to them by authority and it's validated by consensus, right? It's not about what's true. It's not about what you can prove is true. It's not about reasoning and thinking things out for yourself. It's about what does authority tell me is true, and how am I validated by what other people think is true. It's about authority and consensus. That's their epistemology. That's the way that like what truth is to a normie, to an NPC, is it's about authority and consensus. It's not about actual truth. It's not about whether or not something is true or right or wrong. It's about authority and consensus. If it's conventional, if it's quote unquote acceptable to say, right? But yeah, like mockery, and so this is why they use mockery. They don't use logic. They don't use they don't try to argue with your points. And even if they do, there are a lot of fallacious arguments that they use against you, right? And so like that's the second tool. And then the third tool is they use shame. They make you feel like a bad person. Oh, you're a bad person. You're one of those people. You're one of those people who you hate this group of people. You hate that group of people. Oh, you're a hateful person. You're a negative person. Like I hear a lot of New Agers will say this. Oh, like you're just being negative. You're being a negative Nelly. You're not allowed to talk about these things. Like you're demoralizing, right? Like if you talk about uncomfortable realities, they say, oh, you're being negative, and they make you feel like a bad person for calling these things out because you're disturbing the peace, right? And that I remember that there's this quote from Plato. I think this is like a part of a quote from Plato where so like he says like like they say that he disturbs their peace, but it is their corruption he disturbs, right? And this is about a person who tells the truth, right? Like they attack people who tell the truth, and they say that he disturbs our peace, but it is their corruption that they disturb, right? You're disturbing the peace. You're being a menace. You're being a bad person, right? That this shaming tactic that like, oh, you're a bad person for being who you are. You're a bad person for telling the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, right? That this is like they'll use shame, and this shaming tactic is used in conjunction with consensus. They get like the army of NPCs to point the finger at you and call you a bad person. And so what happens is that there are a lot of people, there are a lot of real people, there are a lot of player characters, there are a lot of psychic pneumatic souls that are they come across the Hylic souls, they come across the non-player characters, and they're intimidated by consensus. They're made to feel stupid because of the mockery tactics, and they're made to feel like they're a bad person because of the shaming tactics, right? But I want people to be aware of these three things. These are the three things that the non-player character, the Hylic soul, will use to try to corral you inside of the Overton window, to corral you inside of conventional modes of thought. Is they'll use consensus to intimidate you. They will use mockery to make you feel stupid, and they will use shame to make you feel bad. But so don't fall for these. If you get tomatoes thrown at you for saying something, if you're not being a menace, if you're not trying to antagonize people, because you can get tomatoes thrown at you for being a menace. You can get tomatoes thrown at you for being a bad person as well. Um, but you can also get tomatoes thrown at you for telling the truth, and people don't like it, and people get offended by it, and it shakes up their worldview. And so they come out with these three tactics, right? So I think that this is something that I think people need to be aware of, is that if you encounter those three things, then that's a sign that you're telling the truth, and you don't need to argue with or respond to like the Hylics, to the NPCs who use these tactics, right? Like people who don't use reason, people who are not concerned about what is true. You don't need to argue with these people. You don't need to be concerned about these people, because if they have to resort to these intimidation tactics, to the ad hominems, if they have to resort to shaming tactics, making you feel like a bad person, like, and this is the thing, that they'll call you all these different names. They'll use all these different shaming tactics. They'll try to intimidate you in all these different ways. With cancel culture and censorship and all this stuff, but they'll never call you wrong. Like they won't admit that they won't admit right doing, but they won't admit wrongdoing either, right? So yet again, like, if they can't attack your message, they attack your character, they attack you, they attack who you are if they can't attack your message, because they know, because deep down they know it's true, or at the very least in their robotic mind they know that it's outside the Overton window, and therefore it's a threat to the system. These are the leash dogs of authority. These are the, the leash dogs, the people who, like the Westworld robots that fight for the authorities at the top. These are like the robotic leash dogs that go after you. They go after the real souls who start to wake up, and they try to corral you and keep you inside of this little box. So don't let them, right? But yeah, that's the video.